If you're getting married and you're creating a prenuptial agreement, how do you know when it's valid? Hi, I'm Zachary C. Ashby of Pacific Northwest Family Law. This is going out to everyone who wants or needs or is considering a prenuptial agreement to make sure that this agreement is valid and worth more than just the paper that it's printed on. Now, a prenuptial agreement is an agreement that takes place before the marriage, and there's two basic things that the court looks at to determine whether or not it's enforceable. The first thing is what's called substantive fairness. What that means is, would the court consider the division in the prenuptial agreement fair? Would it be within the range of what the court would order absent the agreement, is another way to say it. Basically, one of the biggest uses for a prenuptial agreement is to streamline the divorce process. So there's not arguing, there's not bickering, there's not a lot of negotiation once the time for a divorce comes. You've made decisions before divorce happens so that everything can go smoothly at the time of divorce and save time and money for both sides. Some people describe the prenuptial agreement as one of the best things you can do because you're making it at the time right before marriage so that your infatuation with the other person will lead you to make a fair agreement for both sides. It's also a good way to see if the other person's going to treat you fairly, but it's really something that helps out on the other end, something that you hope would never happen. And so the court looks to see, is it fair? Does it give a division of assets and debts that would be fair in the absence of the agreement? Now, just because it may be unfair or give more to one spouse than it would otherwise without the agreement doesn't defeat it. The other thing, if it doesn't pass a substantive fairness, the court would look to, is it procedurally fair? Now, what that means is when it was entered, did the other party have full access and ability to consider everything in the agreement? You've heard stories of prenuptial agreements where the bride or groom comes in at the practice for the wedding ceremony and says, hey, by the way, we're not doing this unless you sign this prenuptial agreement. That would be procedurally unfair. Not enforceable, especially if it's substantively unfair. The other thing is, was there a full disclosure of all the assets and debts ahead of time? If you're a secret millionaire and you don't tell your groom or your bride-to-be, then that would be procedurally unfair as well, that you're hiding a lot of assets, your income, your earning potential, or your debts, or any other things, that you're not having an open disclosure of your finances would tend to defeat it on procedural grounds because you would about it in a way that's unfair. The other thing that could be unfair is if you, who is drafting the prenuptial agreement, has an attorney advising you, but you don't allow the other side to also have an attorney. If the other side doesn't also have an attorney, then that would also tend to be procedurally unfair. And the reason is that a prenuptial agreement oftentimes will alter existing law. And in order to do that, the court wants to ensure that both parties understood what they were getting into, that they had full access to information, and that they entered into it fully knowing what they were doing, all the rights that they had or that they were waiving, and the consequences of their action. A prenuptial agreement, as opposed to other types of contracts, are not arm's length contracts because you have a strong emotional bond that's also at the height of when you're trusting the other person, and you tend to not make rational decisions at that point. So things that we do to make sure that a prenuptial agreement is valid and enforceable is we insist that both sides have attorneys, that there's plenty of time before the wedding, that there's a full disclosure of all assets, and that's actually written out so that both sides can review and see that. And then we make statements like that within the agreement itself so that everything is above board, open, and transparent before anyone signs. If you have any comments or questions, comment below the video, or you can send us questions to info@pnwfamilylaw.com. You can also call us at 509-866-4111. Thank you.